But first, Senator Oshiomhole is firing back at Governor Seyi Makinde, calling his demand for a UN probe into the Oriire school kidnapping most unstatesmanly and accusing him of carrying partisan politics too far. Let's watch.
But Mr. President, I read this morning in newspapers and I've seen it even with the electronic. The governor of Oyo State calling on the United Nations to investigate the overall circumstances surrounding the kidnap and even the rescue. I thought that was the most unstatesmanly. He was carrying partisan politics too far, and this Senate should condemn his unguided statement. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. When we wake up and call on foreign authorities to investigate, this is one case in which our armed forces have shown that without paying ransom, even if it meant that these children and some of the elders had to be in captivity for almost 2 months, that the armed forces were working quietly to have these rescue operations, which, as well captured in this motion, led to some loss of life. To trivialize it, to suggest, as the governor of Oyo State seems to have done, that there is something that is not open, that the UN needs to unearth the circumstances, is to question the sovereignty of our nation and to downplay the achievement of the commander-in-chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and all the service chiefs, and in fact all those involved in this process. I think that there is a moment in the history of a nation when, across party divide, we should stand in unison to commend what has happened, the way in which people were released, and to encourage the armed forces to build on it, that they should extend and get more gadgets. It's not possible for them to share with us some of the things they did. Like I heard, they were able to identify the guys, arrest some of their relatives, etc., etc. These are not details that we're interested in. Very good point. But I want us to resolve that
thank you.
The
Wonderful
governor of Oyo State should not be seen as downplaying, undermining, and politicizing an issue in which ought to be something that the whole nation, across party divide, should start the UDC to commend.
Now, Oshiomhole's argument is that the Oyo rescue operation is proof that domestic institutions can deliver accountability without international intervention. But Makinde's supporters argue that the UN call was never about the rescue operation. It was about the circumstances of the abduction and who may bear responsibility for how long it lasted. The Oyo State Assembly has backed Makinde's call, but the Senate has asked Makinde to withdraw it. The debate is far from over. Now, the real question is not whether Makinde was statesmanly. It's whether anyone will be held accountable for 56 days that teachers and school children were held in captivity. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Of course, this Oyo rescue operation and the politics behind it will continue to play out until we get a balance to the story. But meanwhile, Senator Abdul Ningi called on the government to immediately parade and prosecute all suspects arrested in connection with the Oyo kidnapping, and also proposed that families of security personnel killed during the rescue operation be compensated. Let's take a look.
Now we have people arrested. These people must immediately be paraded, prosecuted, and laid low, take its course. Delaying prosecution will create another impression that something is amiss. I therefore call on the prosecutorial authorities to please, as a matter of urgency, let them prosecute, let them parade, let them show an example to these people.
All right, I don't know what your thoughts are about parading these, suspects at this point. But Ningi also urged the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribaudu to sustain the interagency collaboration that made the rescue possible and replicate it across other security operations nationwide. Now, 8 kidnappers are in custody, and the families of 3 fallen security heroes are waiting for justice and compensation. And I'll just take Bayo Onanuga's reaction before I come to you, reacting to Makinde's call for a UN probe. Well, Bayo Onanuga fired back at Governor Seyi Makinde, describing his call for a UN probe as bizarre politics, saying that Makinde is simply trying to weaponize anything available because he's now a presidential candidate. Just an excerpt of that interview he gave to, I believe, Punch newspapers.
Your thoughts? Let me start off, first of all, with a simple statement on the call by Senator Ningi to parade, prosecute. Yes, there's been a call to swiftly carry out the process of justice on all those who were arrested. That is within, the conversation, and is said to be a way to ensure that we're able to fight against terrorism. Part of it is the full course of the law and ensure that there's no delay in that matter. But the issue around parading has also come under a lot of controversy, because whether or not, and despite how upset and angry Nigerians are and the graveness of their actions, that is the kidnappers, they still fall under the remit of the provisions of the law, which is that they are deemed innocent until proven guilty. So even if they were caught in the forest under the Nigerian law, until a court of competent jurisdiction and law is able to, find them guilty, they are still presumed innocent until guilty. And under this premise, we've often argued that when you parade suspects, if in the event that they are found, not culpable or their sentences reduced, you've already put a stigma on them. There's already trauma attached to them. So in our anger, in our passion, I still believe that to a very large extent, let the rule of law persist. Let the rule of law be established. Let us not circumvent the law. Yes, there's some things and exceptions that we make when it comes to terrorism, but we still need to ensure that their fundamental human rights are upheld, even though they abuse the fundamental human rights of the others, especially the right to freedom and association. But so that's on that one. But let me now talk about this debate around whether or not the United Nations should be called in, whether it is it is politicized, whether or not they do not have the powers or jurisdiction to come and interfere, as some people have put it. And earlier today I had said that actually in previous cases of mass abduction of children, the United Nations had conducted independent investigations. The Chibok girls in 2014, the Kankara boys in Katsina State, there was an investigation because abduction of children actually falls under the 6 grave grave constitutions of the United Nations, and it is important to mention that. And so in cases like that, they can institute an independent investigation. In other areas, a state can actually invite the United Nations where they feel that they do not have local capacity. Regional leaders, like the governor of Oyo State, can call for an independent investigation. What do investigations do? They ensure that they're able to find out the real cause, the root cause, and based on those recommendations from the report, ensure that we're able to avoid instances like that from repeating itself. I had called for the Nigerian state to conduct an independent investigation, and if the United Nations, based on the gravity of the abduction of children, decide to conduct an investigation, why not so? And I don't think that Governor Seyi Makinde should be said, oh, don't do this. If he feels that there's more that meets the eye to the case, then by all means, this is a state. He's the chief security officer. He has a right to ask for more eyes and more investigation to be done, especially if he doesn't trust what has happened on ground.
Oh, well, all right. I think we've discussed the story at length.